Hey, what's up everybody? Rob here from Ram Studio Comics. Welcome back. So in today's video, I'm sharing a illustration with you of some legs. Why is that? Well, because legs are really hard for me to draw and I want to get better at them. How about you? Is that why you're here? Do you want to get better at drawing legs? Of course you do. Now, legs really are one of the toughest things for me to draw, and let's not even talk about feet. It gets into a whole nother level of Hardsville. But so what it is, I'm actually paying attention to my books again, my reference, my source material, and this is from one of my favorite books, Learn to Draw Action Heroes by Rob Marzullo. Sorry, did I just plug my own book? No, this is from Burne Hogarth's dynamic figure drawing book, and all of his books, I'm going to tell you, in my opinion, are required reading. I always tell any artist that's trying to get better, especially, obviously characters. He has one on hands, faces, heads, So anything to do with the human body, first thing out of my mouth is Burne Hogarth. So I just feel that his teaching is so dynamic. That's why all his books are called dynamic. They're focused on dynamic, expressive character concepts and drawing the body in a dynamic way. And whenever I feel like my characters are getting, too flat against the page and stiffening up, and I look at certain people, and Burne Hogarth would be first and foremost, Todd McFarlane. But, the thing about the reason why I probably identify and like the fact that Todd McFarlane can draw these, limber characters that look like they occupy real space is because I was listening to him one day and he said, if you want to get better at drawing the human figure, check out Burne Hogarth. So you see, even he got probably what you see in his work from Burne Hogarth's teachings. And that's how I found out about the books. Todd said, go buy these books. And I ran out like a little lemming and bought the books. And so glad that I did. So I recommend them to everybody. They are fantastic resources. What I like about this particular illustration, or at least not my version of it, but Burne Hogarth, and what I'm trying to capture here, is that he shows so much dynamic expression in this one leg pose. He shows that the legs are obviously not static. They don't need to be straight up and down, and they don't need to be parallel. They don't need to be, one can be tilted in a little more at the knee. He explains so much with this one image. It's profound. And so he talks about the relationship of how the legs ultimately appear relatively straight in the middle, not completely straight, nothing on the body is straight, obviously, but the anatomy kind of lines up relatively straight by comparison on the inner parts of the legs, and on the outer parts of the legs, you have these distinct curves. Also, you have these angles that are very evident of, the inside ankle being higher, the vastus medialis versus the vastus lateralis. The vastus medialis is lower, and that's what that slanted line in the upper portion above the knee means. So again, all these things he points out, how the sartorius rotates our leg and, gives us that range of movement where we can move our foot inward or outward. And he shows it in a way where the illustrations express that. So, I'm a picture guy, I'm a visual learner. So for me, these books are paramount because they're very effective at visual learning, is the best way I could put it. So, so this one, even though this is difficult for me, and like the feet, oh my God, look at these toes. They're bad. You're going to see me erase these feet a lot, which tells me I need to practice feet. And you guys have said it too. You're like, can we get some foot drawing videos? And I'm just going to be quite honest. Feet are nasty. I really don't want to draw them. But I know as an artist, I have to. I can't avoid the things that are ugly like feet. I just got to draw them, right? So I will draw some feet. And yeah, I really need to practice them. It's kind of a shame because I think as a comic artist, it gets real easy to just ignore them, right? You can just put super socks on them or, superhero booties and say, well, you don't got to draw the toes. And, toes are really just ugly fingers, but if you don't practice them, they're actually harder for some weird reason. And so, and it's funny too, because I've heard other comic artists talk about this whole feet epidemic and not drawing them. Jim Lee had a good analogy on it, or bits of it, reasoning for it. And he said that it was because if you draw the character without feet, it kind of enhances the presence. I think he said it makes him look larger, more powerful. obviously there's certain scenes you have to draw feet. You can't get around it. But then he said, then he also made the comparison. He said, well, look at movies. Pay attention to your next action movie or movies in general. See how often you see the feet. And I kind of paid attention. He's right. I mean, there's a majority of the shots are not with the feet in them, So it's just, there's an idea there behind the camera angles and everything. So anyways, or maybe we're just trying to justify the fact that we don't want to draw feet. But Burne Hogarth draws them really well. So I got to admit, I was looking at his artwork this whole time when I was doing the study, and I'm like, wow, I really need to up my game. And one thing I do notice about his work when he draws them, when he draws anything like the ankles and all that, and the toes and the feet, he starts to get very angular, and he starts to bring out those bony landmarks. So even though he has a very rounded curvature to his anatomy, a very dynamic way of doing that, he also has this neat stylized approach to the bony landmarks, which I think is really cool. I feel like in today's comics, in today's illustrations, there's a lot more of the angular bony landmark thing going on everywhere, even with the anatomy. So it's kind of funny looking at his work and knowing it's got a certain nostalgic feel to it, and it's it's a bit aged at this point, but it's so dynamic for the year it was created. I really do think he was ahead of his time. Like if you look at his work on Tarzan, he did comic strip work for Tarzan, and some of those, I don't say some, all of it, but some of them are just flipping amazing. Like his use of dark and light, for the black and white comic is just groundbreaking. So I really do think he was ahead of his time. His instruction is just fantastic. And yeah, so when people ask me like, how did you get better? What did you do? I studied his books, and I don't know how many times I drew this particular image, but I know I'm going to draw it a bunch more because I still can't capture it properly. But that's the fun in the pursuit. So this type of practice, it teaches me a lot. It teaches me, how to better place the muscles, the relationships of them, the angles from the inside to the outside of the leg and the muscles, and what a leg looks like rotated. He packs that all into one illustration. And so when you go to recreate these, and I don't care if you're recreating it from a book that you like, or, an educational resource, or some of your favorite comics. I've heard people frown upon this stuff, and I just don't get it. Like, if you're redrawing somebody else's work, you're learning. Flat out, you are learning. Now, if you do that too much, maybe you would be a carbon copy of that artist. I probably wouldn't recommend that. That's up to you, though. Whatever makes you happy, whatever floats your boat, do it. But at the same time, you are learning. I find that I learn so much by studying other people's work. Like, I look at Da Vinci's work, and you're talking somebody lived a long time ago, right? But his pen and ink work reminds me of almost like some amazing comic art today. Like, he just had that stylistic approach even in his work. And I know he was into a lot more realism, but he had a very stylized feel to some of his renditions. And I just think that's so cool. So, I mean, I don't take anything off the table. I study a lot of different work. I Google way too much. But I redraw the stuff and I learn from it. I add it into my, my toolbox, and I keep on going. So don't feel bad about like recreating comic art that you like. If you see an artist's work, you identify with something there, that's your mind's telling you something. It's going, it might be very apparent. You might look at it and go, wow, this person draws hands really well. I need to study the way they draw hands. So you flip through a few of the pages of the book, and you're going to draw the hands over and over until something clicks, because it will click, but you sometimes have to beat it into your head with repetition, because the thing you're fighting is the habit that you formed through repetition with no instruction, basically. So now what happens is you have to knock that bad habit back, and you're only going to get there with repetition. It's not going to happen the first one or two tries. So be ready for that. You got to put some work ethic in there, but draw it over and over, and don't be afraid to, revel in it and show it off. Like, I know this one's not perfect, but I'm still showing it here on YouTube for thousands of people to see and make fun of, because you know what? I'm going to get better as I do this. I'll do another 10 versions of this down the road, and one day I'll get it right. Anyways, all right. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, as well as what you'd like to see in the future. And as always, keep drawing, keep having fun, and bye for now.